Good evening, everybody. Hello, hello. A little bit of pre-show action for you. Ooh, misses. It's about 2 minutes to live, or about 2 minutes 22 seconds, because you're a little bit behind us. We say it, and then 22 seconds later you get it. A bit weird, but there you go. So, hello to chat. We've got Mike in there, Fuzzy Ann, Chief, Callum, Sabs in there, Scarlett, Rob, 19, Silent, me, and that's actually me in chat, but I'm not logged in. Blaze, Costello, and lots of other people. Pete, hello, hello, hello. Tonight, we have Mr. Gary Dibley in the house. Say hello, Mr. Gary Dibley.
Yeah, how's everybody tonight? Yeah, this is strange again, isn't it? It's,
yes.
Yeah. We'll be good. We'll be good.
And we're going to be talking a little bit about the action from yesterday in the law courts. Spoke to Fraser earlier on. So we've got all that coming up in the next hour. So I think it might be a little bit time for the bug, because we've got about a minute to go. So we'll see you at 9 o'clock. Good evening, good evening, good evening. Hello to you all out there. Looking out my window and it is dark. Oh, those dark nights, and it's getting cold. I've actually put the heating on for the first time for a few months tonight, because it was getting far too cold. I will be complaining later that I'm far too hot with all these lights and everything, but there you go. That's just the way it is, isn't it? Tonight we have a feature pack show. Got lots of stuff coming up. We're going to be talking with Mr. Gary Dibley. As I mentioned, you are on screen, Mr. Gary Dibley.
Hello.
Talking to Gary about some pretty diabolical mods that we've seen. Well, a particular diabolical mod. We're going to be hearing from Fraser Cropper from Totally Wicked after the titles. And then in part 3, we've got the 3rd episode of Gary with MFT. But all that, my friends, is after the titles. It's VapourScene. VapourScene is proudly sponsored by Health E-Vape, UK purveyor of e-cigarettes and Pure Perfection e-liquids. Yes, good evening. It is Tuesday the 7th of October 2014 and you are watching VapourScene here on VTTV. And it's been, news-wise, there's been quite a few stories, but the big story, really, It's one that surfaced yesterday, and it's in relation to Totally Wicked. And they went to the Royal Courts of Justice, and they've been given leave to take some action in the European Union, European Parliament, and their courts to challenge Article 20 of the Tobacco Products Directive. And you can see there part of the press release. I won't go through the whole press release. We can put the link to that in chat very shortly. And it was also reported on the BBC News site in Lancashire. And if you spot the deliberate mistake by the BBC, they've actually got a picture there of Jason and not Fraser, as it purports to be, which was a little bit weird. Yeah. So I spent some time earlier on talking to Fraser, and this is what we said. The decision yesterday at the Royal Courts of Justice in London gave you leave to appeal the decision of the Tobacco Products Directive, specifically Clause 20. Is that correct?
Yes, it's the Article 20 that refers to e-cigarettes. We've been a number of arguments and contentions related to Article 20. And we have no responsibility to contend that the TPD in the round is incorrect. There's lots of good things the TPD brings, particularly for cigarette-related directive. But Article 20 in the round is just wrong, illegitimate, and presents e-cigarettes in the wrong way and regulates them in a way which will ultimately be detrimental to the sector and to the users. That's the basic contention that we have.
Part of the argument on the press release is to do with the unjustified competitive disadvantage. I'm just looking across there at the release. Unjustified competitive disadvantage to tobacco products, and fails to comply with the general EU principle of equality and breaches fundamental rights of electronic cigarettes manufacturers. Do you think it is possible that this is going to get a decent hearing next year?
I rest under the premise that judges are objective, that they will consider and will apply their objectivity to arguments, and that when they judge, they're doing so impartially and based upon the evidence provided. And therefore, I think we will get a hearing which is legit. I think we have a very strong case, because as most people who are aware of what's gone on in the past 18 months know, that there is major flaws with not only the legislation that was passed, but also the way we got there, the lack of objectivity that was applied to it, the lack of consideration of the evidence, the amount of lobbying which has been undertaken to disturb the process and to ensure that those who were influential were being matters or considerations which not as relevant as they ought to have been, or indeed were based upon misrepresentation.
Yeah, we saw during the whole TPD process so much in the way of lobbying by the tobacco companies and from the pharmaceutical companies, and the vaping community was also accused of not being who we are, knowing too much information, and they didn't believe that ordinary people, ordinary vapors, could understand the processes and could understand the technologies. But the community know a heck of a lot more than probably every MEP who voted on that piece of legislation.
Yeah. Well, I agree, Mark, and I don't ever suggest that the reason why the MEPs voted against the first article that was presented in late last year was because of things that we or other industry participants provided or supported. It was just as simple as the vaping community making their MEPs aware of what was happening and informing them of what they should be informed of, so they could make their opinion, stroke judgment on facts rather than what was being fed by the council of ministers and Ms McAvan and her related acolytes. And I think it was an absolute testament to the power of people, those who vote, in making sure that those who represent them were aware of what they wanted them to do and how they wanted to be represented. So I think it was a wonderful show of force and a show of solidarity, and actually a show of democracy working for once, that the voters, the people who legislation was being written for, who felt it would be adversely affecting to them, took some responsibility for themselves and actually were shown that that responsibility was well taken because people responded to it.
Things were railroaded very quickly through, and that things were changed at the last minute. But I think the lobbyists did the whole thing more harm than good. It was reported that Totally Wicked sent kits to all the MEPs. Do you think, in hindsight, that was a good or a bad idea?
Well, in hindsight and at the time, we all thought it was a good idea. That wasn't just me or anybody else in the business acting independently. We discussed it with our lawyers, with the PR support that we had, and it wasn't simply send a kit and some fluid to all MEPs. It was much more considered, and I think it has been represented as otherwise. I think it's a slight misrepresentation. We sent them a letter and a briefing paper, and the letter and the briefing paper introduced them to a number of the core arguments that we didn't think that they understood. We didn't think that they understood that an e-cigarette was not simply a ciggy-like. I don't think that the majority understood the concept of refillables and fluids, strengths, the varietals that come with that, and a basic second stroke, third generation product. So we sent the letter and the product and the briefing note to make sure that at least we had done what we thought we could and needed to do to get some information initially into the hands of the MEPs, which would hopefully put them at least in the context that they needed to be. We had only 3 of those returned from MEPs. We heard nothing from the other 745 or so, bar 2 emails that I received saying thank you. So it was tacitly accepted, and no great detraction or no great exception. But I think it's a misrepresentation to suggest that we simply sent e-cigarettes to MEPs. The e-cigarette was part and parcel of a much more considered approach, which was the briefing paper and the letter to try and educate. It wasn't some ridiculous marketing ploy that some would have suggested. I think people have to be aware that we've spent a lot of money on trying to influence this for not just our own reasons, but for our customers more importantly. And it would be crass in the extreme for us to use it as some kind of marketing ploy for short-term gain and derail a much more strategic intent.
I think the way it was reported at the time was mainly to move against e-cigs. A lot of things were said, and a lot of facts were misrepresented or cherry-picked. So it made the science go the other way, where we all know where the science is and we know where the truth is. And I think that it was manipulated somewhat, and a lot more science has come out now and is being reported correctly. I think we're getting more favourable reporting by the media these days. However, they do jump on any issue at all, be it an exploding battery or fire, caused generally 99 out of 100 times by user error. They jump on those and try and use it to make it look like it's an extremely dangerous pastime stroke thing to do.
I think it's more balanced, Mark. I think it's balanced not because I think there's necessarily a concerted media campaign to be more balanced. I think they're being held to account by the fact that they are being demanded to be more balanced by those people who are now much more aware, and in some part slightly held to account by the potential embarrassment that comes by making ridiculous statements which are so fundamentally in tension with the facts and the evidence. I think that's the most important thing that's happening, and something that we always thought would happen over a period of time. Go back 18 months, December 2012, when we first saw the draft TPD. And who would have thought that 18 months later we would be in a situation where there's been such a significant change to the landscape, and there has been positive change to the landscape, and a lot more educated and informed people than there were 18 months ago. I see that through the engagement we've had with MEPs and others, MPs who visited our business, and those in the media. I don't now have to start each discussion with a media representative with going over the very basics of e-cigarettes. They know those basics. They are also aware of some of the basic matters that define the performance of an e-cigarette compared to a conventional cigarette. 18 months ago, that wasn't the case. Nearly everybody I spoke to was still in the mind of whatever the mind was, which was these things are dangerous, they're worse than cigarettes, nicotine is going to kill you. All those fallacies that we've been trying to knock over incrementally for years were catalyzed in the debate that was around the TPD in 2013. So I think there's a lot more information, and that means that the media have to therefore convey that greater depth of knowledge, and there's also a greater depth of awareness in the user base and beyond who will hold them to account when they talk tosh. So I think that's happening naturally, and that's ultimately what I believe will prevail and win the day, which is that the genie is out of the bottle when it comes to e-cigarettes. There's 1.5 million people in the UK who use them routinely, and they don't want people to interfere in a life choice which they've taken themselves, which they know is very positive, and they've taken some control of their own destiny. Amazingly powerful, and that's the reason why people were so up in arms with the TPD in 2013, and why they were so strident and took some personal responsibility. So as much as the regulators would want it to be X, I don't think it can be X, because the users will demand it's going to be Y, and we're just assisting as best we can by bringing that to an objective place, which is a court.
We should be able to purchase these devices. I mean, Gen 1, even Gen 2. But now a lot of people are now using Gen 3 devices, but you should be able to go into a shop and purchase one of these if you wish to, if you can purchase 20 packs of cigarettes.
Of course you should. Of course you should. And also, what we should recognise is that e-cigarettes apparently are being held to a different set of standards than conventional cigarettes. I think I understand that in part. But I also have to understand the subtext to that, which I won't accept, which is the availability of cigarettes is supported by every state in Europe. They may well wring their hands in despair at the pestilence it brings to society, but they still allow it because they take taxes from it, and they still allow them to be sold. So this acceptance of cigarettes, albeit with all its ills, is government sanctioned and European state sanctioned. So if they were really concerned about the health of the nations, then they've got within their gift to do what they want with cigarettes. They could ban them if they wanted to, but of course they won't, nor should they actually. I'm not advocating they should, because it's about personal choice, but they could if they wanted to. So along comes an e-cigarette, and here comes their opportunity to bully this new sector in the way they probably would have wanted to bully conventional cigarettes, but never had the courage or the ability to do so. And that's where we find ourselves, we're this interloper in this duopoly between pharmaceutical and tobacco products, which have always had their say over 25% of the population's habits. And we've probably taken away 15%. E-cigarettes, I'm talking about TW. E-cigarettes have taken away 15% of that ensconced user base. Significant amount of revenue loss, and let's not hide under anything other than a basic moral argument here. There's nothing immoral about what we're doing. We're offering a product which offers the first ever choice for those who smoke who wish to continue to recreationally use nicotine, a choice other than quitting. And that should be endorsed by all who have both the desire to have people making choices for themselves, and more importantly, B, for those people who also wish to see the reduced risk of those dying from tobacco-related smoking. So the arguments, once again, going back to the first comments I was making about the arguments we put forward to judges in the European courts, is that the arguments are very simple. As long as conventional cigarettes are available, our products deserve to be available, and morally deserve to be available, and deserve to be given the ability to compete with conventional cigarettes. And that's all we're asking for. It's not complex.
So what's the next step? It's going to be heard in the European courts in 2015, is that right?
It is. We asked for expedition from the UK court, which is essentially the UK court confirming that they believe there is a need for this case to be heard immediately. That would have potentially meant that this case would have been heard before the end of the year. That wasn't given, but we still believe that we'll be given a suitably expedited track, which means that potentially in 9 months' time our case will be heard, so summer of 2015. And we need this to be heard as soon as possible, because there's a whole range of decisions that we as a company have to make, and indeed consumers potentially will have to make as a consequence as to what it means in the future, what it means for our strategic development of our business, the investment that we make, the position we take in the sector. The sword of Damocles hanging over our heads, and until that's removed or confirmed that it's going to fall, I can't really make any business decisions which are based upon evidential fact which I can commit to. So there's a lot of reasons internally for the business that I need this to be resolved quickly, but more importantly, our customers and those who also operate in the sector need this to be confirmed so we can make our own actions and define our own plans.
Yeah, I mean, there's many thousands of people employed in the industry, just in the UK. So that's many thousands of livelihoods as well, based, on this piece of ridiculous legislation. So hopefully things will happen quickly.
But it's also a bit of a, coming back to that moral thing, Mark. It is just as important that it's heard irrespective of the commercial realities. It really is. And whether people believe me or not, it doesn't really matter whether they do, because I know why we're doing it. Others could have done it if they wanted to, and I'm surprised other communities or companies haven't started this action in Europe. But as far as we were concerned, Jason and I, when we discussed this a year and a half ago, I remember in December of 2012, when we first saw the draft TPD, we were committed to doing all that we could to, in our own modest way, prevent it from happening. We made that commitment to take legal action if we needed to all those months back. Within a month of the draft TPD being released in December of 2012. So we've always been committed to this course of action. And we'll take it to its eventual conclusion. And I do believe that we'll be successful, because I can't believe that you can't see, or anybody who's charged with objectively looking can't see the basis of our arguments and justify that it's correct to do what we're doing.
The community as a whole, the 1.5 million and growing community who want to use electronic cigarettes instead of lit tobacco are going to get a pretty raw deal if this goes ahead as it's been written.
Yeah, and that's the reason why we're doing what we're doing, Mark. And I wish he wasn't here, if I'm being honest. I wish I could spend the time that I need to look into the business and lead the business in the way that I would like to, but it does consume a lot of my time. 2013 consumed a hell of a lot of my time and a number of other members of the team in areas that I really would not wanted to have been involved in. But unfortunately, these things just won't go away, and if they won't go away by themselves, you've got to try and knock them over if they won't naturally fall. So yes, it is unfortunate, really. I don't take any great pleasure or satisfaction from having to spend time, effort and resources on trying to defeat the TPD, but we have to. And I wish it would just go away, but it's not going to. So we've got to try and kill it ourselves.
Yeah, and I'm sure everybody wishes you luck with this action. And congratulations that the fact that you've got this far, and getting leave to get this heard in Europe. Someone had to do it. Someone needed to do it, and you guys have done it now. So it's going to be a tense 9 months, I think.
It will, and you know, I don't think we need to do much preparation any further. We've got our arguments framed. We've got a really good legal team. I'm just waiting for the date to be confirmed in court, and I think we'll be ready to go. The less time, the better. As I said, for obvious reasons, the more time we get post the judgment, the more we'll be able to address the things that we have to address. What's the outcome going to be? I don't know. If we're successful, what does that mean? I don't know. Could it be a risk that if we're successful in knocking over Article 20, that we go all the way back to the dark days of proposed medicinal regulation? I doubt it. That was defeated because he was wrong. And even the most flagrant, ill-informed opportunists wouldn't believe that we could go back to 2012 and have people like Mr. Mean dancing in front of our screens again. That's not going to happen. So I think realistically what we'd have is the European courts, if we're successful, asking for a new round of regulation to be considered where these products will be given their own regulatory space and for it to be properly, objectively and academically influenced, and to get suitable regulation which allows for the whole of the European community to regulate these products appropriately.
Well, let's hope that common sense prevails in the end, and we're watching this story with great interest as it unfolds over the coming months. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon, Fraser. It was good of you to get on and make some time for us, and wish you all the best with this, and hopefully you can come back on and give us an update sometime.
Yeah, I'd love to, and thanks for the time to discuss this, and best of luck and best wishes to all you at Vapor Trails. Take care. Thanks.
So there you go. That was my good self talking to Fraser Cropper from Totally Wicked early this afternoon, and I thought it was good to get him on as quickly as possible after the press release yesterday. And there's still a long way to go, but you know, keep our fingers crossed, and with a good prevailing wind, maybe something will happen over in the European courts to get rid of this Article 20 and push the cause further on. So kudos to Fraser and the team over there for pushing on with this. It's not exactly a cheap business either, I would imagine. So we are going to go into the first set of ads, but before I do, I was talking to Fraser afterwards about Jason, see how he was doing after the burglary at his house last year. And on next week's Crime Watch, on the 16th, they're going to be talking about that particular incident. So if you do know something, or you know somebody who knows something, then have a watch of that, and you know, make the call if you know. And I still think there's a huge reward out there for information leading to arrest. So there you go. And we all wish Jason well as well, after what happened. Not a nice thing at all. So let's go to the ads. When we come back, Gary and I will be talking about a really bad mod that's been sold on eBay, and we're going to look forward to the Children in Need event this year. So we'll see you in 2. VapourScene is proudly sponsored by Health E-Vape, UK purveyor of e-cigarettes and Pure Perfection e-liquids.
often imitated, never duplicated. Award-winning service and products from cloud9vaping.co.uk.
And now it's back to VapourScene on Vapor Trails TV. VapourScene is sponsored by Healthy Vape, UK purveyor of e-cigarettes and Pure Perfection e-liquids. Hello, welcome back to part 2 of this week's edition of VapourScene. Before the break there, we were just talking with Fraser and the action going ahead. And now we're going to move on to something quite, I'm trying to think what the word is, quite shocking. Distasteful really, shocking, yeah. This is a mod that was on eBay. And if I just go through these wonderful pictures, you'll see this. It's a triple 18650 mod, excuse me, in a metal box with some pretty shocking wiring, as you'll see as I click through these pictures. Being built by I don't know who, but if you look at this disastrous wiring, you will see why it's quite a shocking piece of equipment. Mm-hmm. You've seen the pictures, Gary. What do you make of it?
Yeah, like shocking. To be honest, it's not the first time I have seen or had in my hand something that's appeared on eBay. I haven't seen who actually made that, but I know the guy who made the last. I don't know if you can remember the show we did a little while ago on Tinny Tit where we had the Wii mod.
Oh yes.
Now that again was an eBay purchase. Nothing wrong with eBay purchases per se, but the concerning thing is some of the things that are actually going out there and that are being sold on eBay to the unsuspecting public who may well have never come across a forum, a website, this VTTV, anything like that, just don't have a clue what they're buying. As far as they're concerned, they're buying a vaping device. Now you would sort of hope that somebody looking, I won't put those pictures up to be honest with you, anybody looking at a device of that type would have the sense to back the hell away from it. Words fail to come out of my mouth to explain the way I feel about that, to be honest with you, mate. It is absolutely ridiculous. Obviously, I've been one of the people that we were encouraging people to have a pop. Now, there's having a pop for, and making something for yourself, but you enter a whole different world when you're making something to sell to somebody. You enter a whole different realm of responsibility as well. And I think that's what people don't understand. If you're making something that you are selling to the general public, it has got to be to a certain standard. Now, obviously at the moment, there are no set standards to what a mod can actually, look like, what it can contain, what the wiring needs to be. But I'm shocked. I'm absolutely shocked that somebody actually put that out there and thought that was safe, thought it was a good idea, and thought they could get some money for it. There's this, well, I don't know what the comeback is. When I was, I protected myself, should we say, when I was selling mods. Firstly, by hopefully knowing what the hell I was doing. Secondly, anything that I was selling, I put through a hell of a lot of testing prior to putting it out there for sale. And the third thing, I actually protected myself with insurance. I guarantee a lot of these guys that are out there now that doing that are not, hitting probably any of those things. They're knocking something up on the bench on a Sunday morning, chucking it straight on eBay to sell, and it's scary. It really is scary with some of the stuff that you can see out there.
Yeah, I mean, for the actual price of it, it's 56 odd pounds, I think. Let's go back to it. £56.50.
Yes.
And
okay.
It's the last one. So one had been sold, and that was the last one. But for that kind of money, you can get something half decent with decent wiring from Fastech, you know, or from China. Yes, it'll take a few weeks to get to you, but yeah, you can exactly buy something a little bit better.
You buy something far better for 50 odd quid. You could. It's yes. 50, I didn't see the price when I looked. I think that shocks me even more. Yeah. It's laughable, but it's not, if you know what I mean. It's the mishmash of you know the grades of wire that have been used in it, and oh mate, you know what more can you say? Yeah. Yes,
I know. I had to turn my mic down and cough. Made my eyes water. I'm just looking here at chat, and Blaze said he'd be too embarrassed to even take a picture of it. And VB says, it's why I don't build to sell, can't afford insurances. Well, you know, if you are making something to sell to people, you have to have liability insurance, because if it blows up in someone's hand and takes their fingers off, it's them to blame. So if you're going to buy something built as badly as that, with burning through the wires to make the connections, not even making the wires the right length and soldering it properly, but just using one length of wire and melting it with the soldering iron to make the connections, it's pretty damn shoddy and not good. And that is the kind of thing that will damage the whole community, not as, you know, as well as possibly damaging somebody who is using it. So please don't buy those kind of things off eBay. It's yeah, it is. It's pretty grim, isn't it, Gary? So we'll keep an eye on that, and we'll keep an eye on eBay and see what else comes up. And if I see anything as shoddy as that, I will bring it to you and we'll talk about it. But Gary's also here tonight because next week I'm not here. So Gary's going to run the show next week. It's going to be fun. It's going to be fun, isn't it, mate?
Oh, mate. How can I put this? As Dave Dawn would put it, I have a bottom like a bunny's nose. Just thinking about the idea. Yeah, it's going to be good to be sort of back in a driving seat for a week. Yeah, no, that'd be fun. I'm looking forward to it. But it's going to go. I don't know. I'm sure there'll be lots of echo and fuzzy pictures and blurs and you know, mutes in the wrong place. That'd be good. Got to get back on the bike at some point, I suppose, haven't we?
Yeah, why not? I mean, end of the day, if I can, I'll try and Skype in from my hotel. It depends on what the Wi-Fi signal's like. If I was in Glasgow, I could use my 4G, but I won't be in Glasgow. I'll be in Ayrshire, so I won't be able to use 4G because it's not there. Unless it's actually been switched on while I've been away. So I'll see when I get up there. I can always plug the laptop in. But the other thing we want to talk about tonight is the Children in Need Raffle. So why don't you tell the folks what's happening this year? Yes, well,
as sort of per last year, I launched it a little while ago. Normally, the way that it's not sort of all about the raffle, it's more for the build-up. The raffle's going to be run in December. All funds obviously going directly to children in need through Just Giving. I'm starting to compile a lot of the raffle prizes, some of which I have at my feet at the moment. And a lot of very good people have been helping me, get those prizes together. Rick, who helped put together, he was the main man behind Vapefest. He's been doing a grand job for me in sourcing prizes from various vendors. I've got stuff landing now. We're aiming to do the live draw sometime in December, but we're going to do. I'm going to start working at a bit of a build-up around that. Most of the funds last year we raised somewhere near. It was about sort of five and a bit £1,000, with all of the gift aid and bits and pieces included as well. But that wasn't just purely down to the raffle. That was down to vapors getting involved before that, running their own little events, and adding to the pot. So that's what I'd like to see this year if we can. Everybody contributing. If there's a way you can contribute, give me a shout, and we'll try and sort something out. But yeah, it's all kicking off. It's all kicking off, and we'll be running it very, very shortly.
And you're going to give a kind of an insight on next week's show, aren't you? Show some of the things that are coming up. Yeah,
we got some good prizes landed, and I've got some that are wrapped up. Some rocket science mod stuff and all bits and pieces. We got a lovely stand. I've got a line, Atty, lots of stuff. I'll do a video next week showing all the prizes we gathered so far.
Sounds like a plan, mate. Sounds like a plan. We are going to be going very shortly into the second set of ads, because after that we've got the latest edition of MFT. Do you want to give a little sneak about what it's about?
Yeah, this week it was about me being a donkey mainly, and you'll see that towards the
end. I'm sure. I've seen it. I've actually seen it twice, because I always run through all the bits of VT on show nights just to make sure they're all running okay. But before we go to the ads, this is what else you can see on VapourScene this week. Yeah, there you go. Now, that will change as of Sunday, because on Sunday at 9 o'clock, the 12th of October, Mr. Dave Kitson is back in the house. Oh, yes. So that bit of trail will change once Dave's show is up and running. So let's go to the next set of ads. When we come back, it's MFT time. See you in a bit. VapourScene is proudly sponsored by Health eVape, UK purveyor of e-cigarettes and Pure Perfection e-liquids.
Vapors, do you love discovering new e-liquids? Tell Dripper the types of flavours you like and they'll send you 5 gourmet juices each month. Experience new and exclusive flavours, all with a money-back guarantee anywhere in Europe. Dripper.co.uk.
And now it's back to VapourScene on Vapor Trails TV. VapourScene is sponsored by Health eVape, UK purveyor of e-cigarettes and Pure Perfection e-liquids. And welcome indeed back to part 3 of tonight's show. And now it's over to Gary, who's going to introduce his own VT for a change. Yes, here you are, Gary.
Yes, and this evening, Gary, who will be known as Donkey from now on in, is back playing with his box, back on the bench.
And we are back in the room once again. Excuse me. I'm not starting this week with the ugly mug. I've got quite a lot to get through, so I thought rather than waffling up there, let's crack on down here, which is where we need to be. And I'm starting off this week again with this box. This box is going to start taking on some components this week. Now, I've been looking, and I haven't ordered my switch yet, but I'm probably going to have to order a spring at the same time, because I've been looking at what I've got in terms of stuff lying around the workshop that I can use, and to be honest, there's not that much. Not a lot at all. So with my box, what I was looking at is what springs I had to hand. Now, the way that I said that this was going to go is to put in my switch this way and use the one of the terminals here to feed that in to the battery. Now, obviously my battery needs a spring, and first thing that came to mind was I've got a couple of these from bits and pieces, old Vamos and this, that and the other, that would potentially sit down in there very nice, but I'm going to have to get a plate on that. And the reason I'm sort of saying I may not use this one in particular at this moment in time is because of the way it sits. It's going to sit ever so slightly off centre to the battery. Now, it's not a biggie, not a biggie at all. It's got enough tension on there, quite a bit of tension to hold the battery on, and it will give enough room if you wanted to put a battery in there with a nipple. I don't think I've got a nipple to hand. No, I definitely have got a nipple to hand to show you, but that's what I'm sort of thinking. The other thing I was looking at was some of these that come out of the box mods, and these are the little springy things. Now that could quite happily sit down in there, and I could trim it down, but I'm not 100% happy with that. It's a bit too flatly. It would hold and it would do the job, but I'm just going to see if there's something a bit more suitable that I can find to go in there for next week. And realistically, hopefully next week we should be nearly finishing this. I should have my switch and everything in. Cracking on what we're looking at today, I want to get all of my switches mounted and my wires run, and I want to get this section here fixed. I'm going to use a wood glue for that, and make sure it's all nice and neat and this, that and the other. Easier said than done, I think, at this point. But I've got a very good wood glue, it's very, very strong. What I'm going to do quickly first is look at the switches, and I'm going to get my switches metered out first. It's very important, if you're going to use a switch, you need to meter it out. Now, these things are absolutely tiny, and you can sort of see which way they go. When you look at the pins, the way the pins are mounted on the back of it, which two would be doing the switching portion. I'm going to just turn on the beepometer. And it's better to meter it now than to put it on. Now, I know if I short pretty much across, and the way that they're sort of bending gives an indication of the way that the pins work. If you were to go across these two here, across, it's hard getting the little buggers to sit still, you little sod. If you were to go straight across these end two as they bend in, without pressing anything, you got a short across those. That's going to be constantly firing. What you need to do is go across the two that are sort of bending in, and then when you press the button, it doesn't work. and you can go across diagonals as well. But it's always a good idea to meter your switches before you put them in. And what I'm going to simply do is snip off 2 of these prongs and use the other 2 if I could find some snips. So I know that I've metered this out, I know the switch is working, and now I know what 2 I'm soldering to. I'm just going to quickly test my other switch to make sure that's firing before I go ahead and start soldering up and all that sort of stuff. So that's firing as well. So I know I've got 2 good working switches. Snip off the 2 I'm not using, and I need to get these soldered. Let me just drop that out a tiny bit. I'm going to bring in me little wrench here to hold this tight while I'm soldering. And the way that I tend to wire these switches up is I'll use, if you like, a colour for each switch. Colour for the up, colour for the down. I find it easy to be able to monitor that a little bit later on as to where I am with them. So I haven't said this for a bloody long time. I'm just going to tin my tip. I'm just tinning my tip and running a little bead of solder on the 2 prongs on there. I've got some red wire that I'm going to use for one of the switches. Now I'm going to leave quite a length on this, purely because I want to sort of trim it back afterwards, but I like to leave enough wire to be able to play with what I'm doing. Let me just... This is going to be a nightmare today. I'm just trimming back my wire, give it a little twist. Same on the other one. Give that a little twist. I'm just going to tin them 2 up. I'm just going to drop these on the posts and solder them up together. Now I don't know if I can get down close enough for you to see what we're actually doing without going madly out of focus. I'm just going to run these directly upwards, drop some solder on, get that in, that one's on and held, and same for the other one. And obviously I'm going to repeat the same with the other switch, but I'm going to use a black wire. So I'm going to use black for the up or down or whatever which way. So let me just cut a couple of lengths of that. And again, I buy this wire by the reel. I've bought 100 meters of each a long time ago, I can tell you. This has been, I've made quite a few mods out of this in that time, and it's been going for well over a year. Let me just tin this one up, tin the other one up, and as we always say when you're soldering, keep returning, cleaning your tip as you're going. It just prolongs the life. Now I've lost my knob. Where's my second knob gone? There it is. I'm looking at it, you donkey. I'm just going to tin my little prongs on my switch. It's always easier to just tin up as you go in. Drop that one on. Now what I tend to do with these prongs when they're sort of all ready is I'm just going to lay these flat. So effectively bend them backwards like so. You've got to be careful when you're doing it. And I'm just going to bend them Oh, focus. I'm going to bend them that way. Purely because when I lay that flat in that box, I'm going to have the other switch running there, and this just keeps it nice and flat, so it gives a bit of clearance for this board to sit above it. Now obviously you can see that there, I'm going to try and trim these prongs down ever so slightly, so there's no chance of that shorting anywhere on the board. But when this is actually down, that's going to have a layer of epoxy over the top of it, so there shouldn't be any chance of shorting anyway. I'm going to pop back in two. Right, well, I've been away, I've been playing, and I've been playing for fitment, which is one of the things you got to check again before you fix. And I discovered a couple of little things. Clearance I thought I was going to have, I didn't, so I've had to remove the components from the board. I'll show you that in a tick. But now I've got me, which way up is it? There, wait. Now I've got me buttons in. Board in. Now they're not mounted, they're just ever so slightly fitted in there. Now like I say, this is made to such a tight fit, it's incredible. I can get all this in, my switches are working, and I can see, you know, what we're going to look like, which I don't think is going to be that bad, to be honest. That is going to look pretty darn funky. So let me just ease this board out. I'm going to pop through the display and I'll show you realistically what I've had to do down on the board. I'm trying to sort of speed things up ever so slightly if I can. Now because the switches were protruding, as you can see in there, they're just laid in place at the moment. Because they're protruding, these switches were angling the board up ever so slightly and the display wasn't fitting flush. So I've removed the boards. Now before I removed the up and the down and the fire switches, I've used my beepometer to gauge where the fire points are. Now on a Vamo board it's quite simple, they're either side of the switches. So before I mount this in, I've got to solder these up to, I've got to get a solder wire out for a fire point, which is going to be going up to my switch here, and I've got to get a point off each of these soldered onto the up and downy buttons. So I've got to strip those back, solder those on, run my wires and this and the other to get them going. How am I going to fix these? Because now if you look down in there, there's not that much of a clearance, even with these wires run flat, and it's going to take some careful routing to get those perfectly sort of in place. Now these switches sit down in there really tight, and when everything's back in and when this board is in, it's going to sandwich that even further, because I'll be putting a thin bit of the epoxy in here, and then that will insulate against the board touching the switches as well. Difficult to see, but hopefully you sort of get where we're going with it. What I'm going to do to fix these switches in place at this moment in time is to run a small bead of glue around the base of them. With a switch I wouldn't suggest to do that, but because this is such a tight fit and they're pushing through and protruding very nicely, there's going to be very little room for leakage of glue to come through and lock these switches up. So I'm just going to dab a very small bit either side of the switch just to hold it firm during the installation process of the board, and we should be good. So it's going to be hard to see how I'm doing this because it's sort of way down there, but I'm going to be using my favourite stuff, which is a very good wood glue. It's so good, the cap's sealed on the top. I can't get the bleeding cap off. Yay, there it is. It's hard stuff, this. And this is Zap-the-Gap. Yeah, Zap-the-Gap. Very good stuff. Make sure it's breathing. And I'm just going in and I'm going to try and get the tiniest bit possible just down around the switch on either side, and just let that set. Now, that's going to take a little while to set, and I'm just going to keep checking that nothing's coming through, obviously, as well as that's going. Pop back into. Okay, we're back in the room, and I've glued me switches in, and I've also taken the liberty while I had the glue out to fix the panel. Same glue. It's a very, very good wood glue, specifically made for wood, and it does a bloody good job. Solid. That is now solid. If it comes out, I'll cry. No, it's solid. I've noticed a major flaw in my plan. I'm surprised nobody else has or shouted as yet. If you have, well done. It was a test. Feel a bit of a cock. What was the problem? The problem was the way that I was proposing to put this mod together. Now, I'm going to have to introduce a battery holder, and it means me getting a little bit of a shorter switch to go in here. The reason for that, my proposed firing of this mod was to have a spring here and to run a battery up to the pin here. Great if you're doing a mech mod, because effectively you're switching the pos, that's touching the let me show you there. Yeah, we've gone through this before, but effectively my battery is going through that spring there. It will be attached to my neg, up through the battery, out through the pos. Now if I just chuck that straight to an atomizer, not a problem whatsoever. However, the Vamo board, and this is where he called himself a cock many times off screen. If I do that the way that I proposed it, switching in that way, effectively all I'd be doing when I press the button is giving power to the Vamo board. Now the Vamo board is a 5-click E to turn on and off, which isn't going to work. Dick. So I need to introduce a battery holder. I need to take this out of the equation. I need to get a shorter switch and introduce an actual battery holder, because then the battery will give a and a minus to the board, which is what it needs, and then my button will do the 5 pushy clicky on off thing to activate the board. There we go. Talk about thinking a mod through before you start. You can tell how long I've been out of this. I haven't picked up an iron since the last time I did some soldering and on the show with Mark. It's been a long time, so I'm going to get back into it, get my thought train going again. And it's one of the things that you come across. You know, I would have probably put this bloody thing together, fired it up and think, what the hell's happening? But we know. We've tackled the problem before it's happened. As such, I feel a dick for doing it. But there we go. Yes, if you've watched previous videos, ignore them. We're starting again, effectively, when we're halfway through it. What I'm going to do, I'm going to get try and get a decent battery holder ordered up. It might need a bit of modification to fit in with the switch. So I'm going to pop away, I'm going to get those ordered. I'll get those here, hopefully, for next week's show. Next week's show, I'm going to be here probably presenting it as Marco is away up in Scotland, I do believe. So we might be able to sneak in an extra video and bring this up a little bit quicker than anticipated. But there we go. For me, that's it this week. I'll hand you back to Marco now, and I'm probably there talking about the Children in Need thing at some point, if I haven't already. If I have, I was great, wasn't I? Right, back to Marco.
And there you go. That was this week's episode of MFT with Mr. Gary Dibley, who's in that box. Yeah, that box there. Hello. Being a bit of a at the end there.
Donkey. Yes.
He will make amends next week on the next edition of MFT, which will be coming from the shed. Will it not, Mr. GD?
It will, yes. Will be. I may well, because you're going to be away, so I may well borrow your house to do the show next week, if that's fine with you. You can leave the key under the mat. I will find my way.
Yeah, we'll see what happens on that one. We time because A, we've waffled, and B, we had a lot of stuff in tonight's show. So let me fill you in on what is happening the rest of the week. Tomorrow night, it's Matt with the show with no name, and he's got some VT from the Welsh Assembly from last week to share with you. Thursday, it's the Haze Hour with Mr. Dave Dawn and Keith, and you never know, other people might appear. You never know, really, do you? So tune in at 9 o'clock for that. Sunday, oh yes, Sunday, Mr. Dave Kitson is back in the house with Dave's Tackle Box, and then you have Davey and Andy on Monday with Drips and Tips. Then next Tuesday, Mr. Gary Dibley will be sitting in for me for VapourScene, and I will see you then on the 21st of October for my next show. So enjoy the week, have fun, vape hard, and don't buy any of those crappy mods.
No.
See you next week, or see you in 2 weeks. Bye. VapourScene is proudly sponsored by Health E-Vape, UK purveyor of e-cigarettes and Pure Perfection e-liquids.